At noon, the Sahara looks empty. Sand to the horizon, heat that bends the air, wind that strips bones. But if you stand long enough, you feel it. A breath rising from underfoot, water moving hidden. Beneath these dunes, the Garamantes carved rivers through darkness. They dug miles of underground channels, stone-veined tunnels that stole cool water from the rock and fed the gardens in the open sun. Palm groves, barley fields, cities ringed with walls. They were not nomads lost in sand. They were engineers of something impossible. And Rome tried to find them and burn them out. And their legions marched south. Armor flying in the heat, standard snapping in a dead sky. The Garamantes answered with speed and knowledge, raiding at dusk, vanishing by dawn, drawing the enemy further from the water with every mile. When Rome finally reached their capital, the Garamantes had already taught them the lesson every empire forgets, that the terrain is a weapon. Their world sat in a Fezzan basin of today's Libya, a chain of oases like green fire along a sea of dust. From there, they traded between the Mediterranean and the lands beyond the Sahara. Salt, gold, ivory, stories, etc. The desert was their wall and their road. And then, slowly, the sun takes the lead. Rains failed, the tunnels were clogged, the gardens thinned, and finally, the cities fell quiet. The Garamantes did not die in a single battle. They faded the way light fades when the wick finally gives out. Centuries later, satellites and archaeologists traced their veins under the sand, long black lines where the water once ran, ghost streets where markets once breathed. The desert wasn't empty, it was keeping a secret. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the story of a people who made Sahara obey, faced Rome without fear, and built a kingdom under the sun and under the ground. The wind says they are gone, but the earth says they are not. Before empires dreamed of maps, before Rome reached across continents, the Sahara was not endless grave of sand we imagine today. It was alive, not gentle, never gentle, but still alive. The Fezzan Basin in southern Libya held valleys where acacia trees clung to earth, where wadis filled after rare rain, where narrow belts of green cut across the desert like veins under the skin. The heat was merciless, but life found a way. And where life gathered, people followed. The Garamantes did not stumble into this land. They chose it. Picture a settlement rising in the glare, mud brick houses, storage pits cool as shades, date palms swinging like thin guardians, children running barefoot across packed earth, the sound of water not flowing in open streams but breathing beneath the ground. The wind carries dust but also voices. Bargaining at a small market, someone sharpening a tool, a woman singing while grinding grain. To outsiders, this would look like stubbornness. To the Garamantes, it was home, harsh, honest, and theirs alone. Most who lived near such deserts learned humility, staying close to river or moving endlessly with herds. But the Garamantes did something very different. They anchored themselves. They looked at the horizon of heat and rock and said, "We will not move, we will build here." They learned the dunes like sailors learn the stars. Each ridge a direction, each shadow a sign. They dug deep into the earth until cold water pooled in their hands. Their world existed between burning sky and hidden streams. Travelers feared the Sahara. The Garamantes understood it. Where others saw emptiness, they saw roots. Where others saw death, they saw shelter. Where others prayed for mercy, they learned mastery. Their land did not encourage softness. It forged clarity. Every choice mattered. Every mistake could cost a life. Every success felt earned. And that shaped a people unlike any other. Proud, private, and quiet as the dunes they called home. When the rest of the world looked outward, chasing conquest and noise, the Garamantes looked downwards into the earth, memory and survival. The desert didn't isolate them. It purified them. Out here, life should have been impossible. Rain barely touched the ground. Wells could only reach so far. Most people who faced this land moved on or never came at all. But the Garamantes were not most people. They dug into the earth, and the way others pray, with patience, belief, and hunger for survival. And below the burning surface, they found an ancient gift: fossil water, trapped deep in the rock, from an age where the Sahara knew rivers and green plains. They did not waste it, they engineered it. They carved underground channels, Foggaras, long veins of stone and clay, stretching for miles beneath the desert floor. Hand dug, perfectly sloped, hidden from the sun. They brought water into the surface like a secret, feeding fields that had no right to exist in this heat. Date palm rose in neat rows. Millet and barley swayed in land where nothing should grow. Cattle gazed in the shades of trees that shouldn't be there at all. These weren't scattered camps. They were cities in the desert. Gharian, Jarma, Zinkara. Living places with walls, houses, workshops, stories. Their streets rang with voices, their nights with drum and the low hum of wind over rooftop. Caravans arrived from deeper African continent, carrying ivory, salt, gold, obsidian, feathers, stories of great lakes far to the south. From the north came Roman glasses, wine, metal, tools, whispers of emperors and wars. The Garamantes sat in the dead center, the bridge between the two worlds. They did not chase conquest, they chased control of water, of roots, of survival. And in mastering the earth beneath them, they became something the world did not expect from the heart of a Sahara. A civilization not wandering, not desperate, rooted, intentional, and ingenious. They farmed, they traded, they crafted jewelry from bone and bronze. They buried their dead with care. They lived not on the edge of nothingness, but inside a system they built from the grit and brilliance. And their great weapon wasn't a sword or a horse. It was knowledge of land, of stone, of silence, of thirst. The desert tests everyone. The Garamantes turned that test into a kingdom. Empires always imagine they see everything. Every river, every mountain, every person is worth knowing. Rome believed the edge of the world lay just south of their frontier. Beyond it, only sand and silence. But silence can hide something powerful. And sand remembers more than the stone. For years, Rome heard whispers of desert people, riders who came like heat haze and vanished like mirage, traders who moved goods across impossible distances, a kingdom without marble roads or marble pride, to an empire built on spectacle. Such a nation sounded like a myth. Then the Garamantes appeared at their doorstep, not as envoys, but as shadows on horseback. They didn't march, they didn't form ranks. They arrived like the weather, fast, sudden, and unforgiving. They struck Roman outposts like lightning, quick, precise, then gone before the dust settled, as if they came like a thunder and vanished like a lightning. The desert was their shield and he their ally. with knowledge being their greatest weapon. Where Rome moved in formation, the Garamantes moved with memory. Every dune a landmark, every oasis a promise, every ridge a blade. Legionaries trained to fight organized armies found themselves striking at wind. Orders meant nothing against the horizon. Discipline wavered under the heat and the sun. A veteran soldier later wrote, "We chased men who rode with the sun at their back and the sand at their feet. We fought the land more than the enemy themselves." So Rome did what empires always do when confused. They sent a hammer. Cornelius Balbus marched south, clocks blazing red against white heat, soldiers in steel that glowed like coals. They carried Roman confidence like armor, heavy, bright, and blind. But no legion can command thirst. No formation can stop heat. No general can outmaneuver a land that devours the unprepared. Every mile became a negotiation with survival. Sand swallowed footprints, the sun stripped skin, night brought cold like betrayal, and above it all, silence. No shouts, no drums, no enemy formation, just emptiness as wide as fear. Until suddenly, a movement, a spear lifted from a dune crest, a horse's silhouette etched in heat, then another and another, not close enough to fight, just close enough to be seen. A message, not a battle. We decide when this begins. Rome pressed on and reached Garama, not triumphant but exhausted, hollowed eyes, armor clinging to bodies like punishment. They expected surrender and collapse. Instead, they found life, quiet, unshaken life. People tending fields, children splashing at cisterns, palm found swaying in an unapologetic green, a city breathing beneath a sun that would kill an outsider in a day. Rome saw no grand palaces, no golden statues, no marble arch to conquer, just an enduring people who didn't need monuments to prove themselves. Conquest thrive on spectacle. But how do you conquer a kingdom built underground? How do you break a people who fight at their choosing, not yours? Balbus returned to Rome claiming victory. The Senate applauded. Statues rose. Triumph banners fluttered. History books stamped the campaign as a success. Yet the desert held the real truth. The Garamantes still rode at dusk. Their water still flowed below the sand. Their children still played in the shade their ancestor carved from rock. Rome won a parade. The Garamantes won the time. And sometimes, time is the only victory that matters. Civilizations don't always fall with a scream. Sometimes they fade with a sigh, a slow quieting of footsteps, a thinning of voices, a silence no army causes. For the Garamantes, the enemy that finally came from them had no flag, no steel, no marching drums. It came from the sky, from the earth, from time itself. The Sahara had not always been a desert. Long before pyramids rose in Egypt, lions prowled these plains. Rivers cut through valleys. Rain fell enough for grass to breathe. But the earth shifts, wind changes, climate tightens like a fist, and the Sahara began to harden. Slowly, year by year, the rain retreated. The air grew harsher, the sun harsher still. Oases shrank, well deepened, shades felt thinner. Even the night seemed less forgiving. The Garamantes answered the way they always had, with work, with patience, with ingenuity. They dug deeper into the rock. They lengthened their Foggaras, chasing water farther below. They coaxed crops from soil that had known hardship for centuries. But every system has a limit. Every brilliance can be worn down by time. The underground water they used was ancient, millions of years old, sealed beneath sand since the Sahara's green days. It was not renewed by rain. It was a treasure chest that emptied one cautious handful at a time. And one day, the chest grew light. Fields began to fail fast, barley turning thin, palms producing fewer dates, herds thin as pasture shrank. Trade caravans arrived less often. Routes shifted west to north. Young people drifted to easier lands. Cities that once murmured with life now whispered instead. Not collapsed, exhaustion, not defeated, draining. A mother grinding the grain under the shade of a palm noticed the ball emptying faster than before. A farmer watched sunlight where water once glimmered in his irrigation trench. A child learned thirst earlier in his life than their parents ever did. No invaders crushed them. No conquerors planted a flag. The desert simply tightened around them until living there meant slow suffocation. And still, they refused to disappear at once. That was never their way. They faded the way the sun sets in the land. Not suddenly, but in colors, in patience, in layers. One town fell quiet, then another, then another. Sand slipped through abandoned doorways. Wind erased footprints one dawn at a time. And the desert reclaimed the kingdom it once allowed to bloom. To most of the world, they were gone before anyone ever knew they had existed. But the Sahara doesn't forget. No land holds memory more fiercely than one where survival was earned grain by grain, heartbeat by heartbeat. And so the Garamantes vanished, not in tragedy, but in dignity. They did not fall. They simply stopped fighting a battle no human could ever win. A kingdom built on understanding. The land was finally undone not by enemies, but by the land's long memory and slow change. Sometimes civilizations don't die. They return to the earth that raised them. For centuries, the Garamantes lived on only as rumors. Travelers spoke of a lost desert people. Roman writers mentioned a stubborn kingdom beyond reach. And the dunes kept the rest hidden. The Sahara became a wall, not just of sand, but of forgetting. Then came the modern age, not explorers on camels, not soldiers with maps, but machines that see from the sky. Satellites scanning a land most believed empty began tracing perfectly straight lines beneath the dunes. Line no wind could carve, no storm could explain. Long, deliberate scars in the earth. Ancient roads, buried canals, city pattern like faded calligraphy across the desert floor. Archaeologists followed, and the Sahara whispered its truth. They found remains of Foggaras stretching for miles. Shafts dug by human hands in a time where survival meant carving the impossible. They found pottery, beads, tools, signs of life in a place the world had written off. They walked through the ghost streets of forgotten cities like Garama and felt wind move through doorways where families once rested in evening shades. The Garamantes weren't a myth. They were a civilization, real, complex, proud, swallowed by sand, not by failures. In museum drawers, shards of their long-ignored pottery began to matter again. In academic halls, their name spoke not only obscurity, but of ingenuity. In satellite images, their world glowed faintly, like embers under the ash, waiting for air. Modern science finally echoed what the desert had known all along. They were here, they mattered, and they mastered this land long before we thought anyone could. And in this rediscovery lies something deeper than archaeology. A truth about us, about memory, about pride and survival. Not all great civilizations chased conquest or carved statues taller than temple. Some chose to understand their land instead of dominate it. Some measured strength not in expansion, but in endurance. Some built their legacy not on stone, but on water hidden in darkness, guarded by the heat and silence. The Garamantes thrived in one of the hardest places on earth and left without fanfare. No dramatic fall, no marble collapse, just a quiet return to dust. And maybe this is why this story hits the heart, because it reminds us that greatness does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it endures quietly, sometimes it waits 1,000 years to be seen again. As the sun sets over Fezzan, the dunes shifts and the wind moves like memory across the sand once touched by their feet. Nothing truly disappears here, not water, not cities, not people. Only visibility fades. And when the time is right, the desert gives them back. Thank you for watching CTT Stories, ladies and gentlemen. The Garamantes didn't carve kingdom to be remembered. They carved them to live. Even where life made no promises, they didn't leave monuments taller than the sky. They left water beneath the bones of the earth and cities where no city should have stood. Rome marched to their gates looking for glory. The Garamantes answered with the dust and silence and endurance. Time came for them slowly, not as a conqueror, but as a long drought. Yet even in fading, they gave the desert something very rare. Proof that greatness does not need witnesses. If this story reached you, help it reach someone else as well. Let memory move again, not on trade routes or empire roads, but through the hands of people who still cares. Comment your thoughts on this story. Subscribe, share, and stay curious. And never forget, some civilizations are not lost. They are simply waiting for someone like you and me to listen. And I'll see you in the next one.